Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be doing my second book review for the One Readathon to rule them all. I'm going to leave the links to the information for all that down below. And the second book that I finished was an audiobook, and it is Anansi Boys by Neil Gaiman. And I'm just going to say this is my first Neil Gaiman novel that I've read before. I've heard really good things about him, and I decided to try him out for the One Readathon to rule them all. So let's get started. First off, I want to say that the narrator, Lenny Henry, did a really remarkable job with this. He gave the entire cast of characters unique voices and accents, and it just made the whole novel just go really smoothly, and his cadence and pacing was just really good, and it was just a great listen, so good job, Lenny Henry. Alright, let's start off with some of the things I didn't like about the book, like I usually do. And I'm just going to start off with this caveat, and that's basically urban fantasy or fantasy that's sort of set in like modern times or in a modern context. Just I don't think is my thing. I've never read fantasy like that before, probably because I knew I wasn't really going to enjoy it as much. And obviously, Anansi Boys does take place like in like modern time with obviously fantastic elements, and I'm going to try not to be too biased in my review based on that. I didn't know that going into the book that it was like a modern setting fantasy book. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to try and be not quite so critical in the book just because of that. First off, I just didn't feel all that much suspense for the characters, even like during the crises and the conflicts that they had to go through. It just the whole story was whimsical in a good way, but it just didn't leave me like hanging on the edge of my seat. It just didn't have me feeling that Fat Charlie or Spider or any of the other characters really were at a great chance of actually either being injured or killed or anything of that nature. So in that sense, without any sort of like tension, I guess, or fear for the characters' like lives, that was just something lacking that I felt. One of the other things I didn't like about the book was the coincidences that take place in the novel, and I know that they're needed for like sort of the structure of the plot and how basically the whole world is pretty small in the grand scheme of things and things of that nature. But in the end, there's still coincidences, I guess, to make sure everything happens properly. Most notably being like when all the characters, both good and bad, all find their way to the island of St. Andrews for a whole host of reasons, basically. It's just even though it's like a charming sort of book where things like this happen, it's just too coincidental for all that to happen, like all in the space of like a couple days. They all end up on this tiny like little Caribbean island. Now, on to some of the good things. To make up for the coincidences that I just mentioned, I do love the characters, and they were a good balance to the sort of that plot that has to kind of occur the way he wrote it. But yeah, almost all the characters I really enjoyed. I like Fat Charlie Nancy and his transformation throughout the book. Spider was a cool, literally a cool figure. I liked Daisy very much. I also enjoyed Graham Coates, even though he's the villain in some sort of weird way. He was just kind of an interesting little like like the epitome of like a weasel character, I guess. So I enjoyed him. The only character I really didn't seem to care for too much was Rosie. I don't know, for whatever reason she just sort of felt flat for me. And I also liked how during all the events that are taking place, there's also like the mythical world is sort of superimposed onto like the regular world as well, and there's sort of something of a conflict between Tiger and Anansi, like in like African folklore is also occurring in a sense. I thought that was really cool how both the mythical plane and the physical plane both resolve their conflicts in like the same way. So I thought that was a pretty unique way to tell a story. And also, Neil Gaiman definitely is a master storyteller. His writing is really unique. I've never read anything quite like it. I enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, it just like sort of modern fantasy just isn't my thing, but it's making me really excited for me to pick up his recent work, Norse mythology. If it's written as well as Anansi Boys, that's definitely going to be a delight to read. Yeah, like I said, just excellent storytelling. If you enjoy a good written style, and obviously I listen to it, but you get the idea. So overall, I was pleased with the Nancy Boys. It wasn't any. I mean, I didn't actually really know what to expect, but it definitely was not what I got. But it was still a good thing. Like I said, overall, it's a really charming story, and the transformation in Fat Charlie really I thought was heartwarming, and it was definitely a good, pleasant read. Something different than anything I've read before, and I'm definitely going to check out Neil Gaiman's other works. Overall, I'm going to give Anansi Boys 4 out of 5 stars, mainly just because, like I said, a few of the plot points were a little too coincidental, and sometimes the story was a little too cute for my taste. But like I said, overall, it was still a great story, written in a very lyrical sort of I don't know how you'd call it, but written in a really, really good style. How about that? And always remember, read victoriously.